Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We just checked out some comfy music, and we're going to be moving on into a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what I need to be checking out. Today's request comes at us from Jordan Wales, said Ad Nauseam, Imperceptible Impulse. I love it. I love alliteration, and we got a pretty strong alliteration there too. It's not just the I, we have an IMP. We got that imp sound at the beginning of every word, so I'm digging that already. Now we got this like water world globe thing with some crazy mountains in it. Very metal, I would say. I think that's the mindset I'm gonna go into. Oh, we got a description down here. It says Italian avant-garde death black metal combo. I don't think I was prepared for that. I'm glad I read that first. Let's dive into this and see what's up. Yeah, this is gorgeous. That bass is present though, and it is a fat bass. Yo, you hear that? I will say that the mix at least is done very well. The two guitars are extremely dissonant, doing their own thing, but at least they're separated and panned very nicely against the rest of the instruments, so I can very precisely hear how dissonant they are. The drums are actually very crisp as well, center pans. Same with the bass. Yeah, they got that nice triplet feel in there on the cymbals, pushing against this hard, right on the downbeat emphasis. I feel like this is not the first part of the song that's had a heavy 3 against 4 polyrhythm though. Triplets have been kind of felt throughout. Even right there, though, we still had like a quarter note triplet going on. It pulls it back. I'm really digging the groove here. And I thought it was going to open up a little bit into some nicer melodies, and it just does not. There's that bass again, just tearing it up. Is just such a dirty bass tone. And I love the rhythmic diversity here. I really like this guitar tone over here. It has like a bumblebee kind of vibe going on. It's kind of wild, but I think I like it, but not. I'll explain. Dude, those snare hits, those blasts on the snare. I enjoy this a lot worse without the drums there to help sort of distract me from what the guitars are doing harmonically. Another 3 against 4 here. The 3's more dominant this time around, though. They're even playing around with the downbeats there, uh, changing up which beats were accented. And I thought I had finally found the rhythm of it, and the song ended. So I did not get a chance to test that hypothesis. But I don't believe anybody was playing the meter at that point. No one was playing on the time signature all the time. There wasn't any metronome instrument. I was checking in on pretty much every drum instrument. Cymbals specifically, I feel like cymbals tend to hold the metronome in a lot of metal. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because they're not as punchy as your bass and your bass and your snare. It's easier to accent with those, so that's the ones that you use to create the offbeat ideas, and then you use your cymbals, which are lighter and brighter. They don't call as much attention to them to hold the meter. That's my hypothesis, anyways. It's very rare to hear the opposite with wild things going on in the cymbals and a snare or a tom or a bass kick holding down. Actually, the snare does sometimes hold down the metronome, but it's usually at a halftime. It's or even once per bar, especially if you're in 4/4. I've heard it often used on beat 3 um, to sort of hold down the structure of the time signature. But bass and tom, yeah, that just does not happen very often. But yeah, I was listening to everything on the drums. I was listening to the guitars, and I was feeling the 6 or the 3 that was going on, but I really wanted to find that 4 because the 4 against 3 idea is fairly present in this entire track, and I can't believe they would have omitted it there at the end. And like I said, I thought I found it, but they were playing around with accented beats a little bit. So, yeah, Ad Nauseam. That was something. That was something. Who is this, Jordan? Jordan, man. Sometimes I feel like you guys pick songs just to, I mean, it is, I guess I do promote myself as a reaction channel, but I feel like sometimes these songs get picked just to see my reaction. Um, Dang. Okay, there's a whole album on this. Yeah, that makes sense. But it's the same. This is the title track from the album. So I assume that this would be the most indicative track of their album, of their current works, because this came out in January 2021. Um, yeah, so this would have went very well with Dissonant Week a couple of weeks back. There is just a lot going on in here. It's an incredibly dense song. And a lot of really slick compositional ideas that are hidden by the unpalatable harmonic work. I think that's the best way I can put this. In another way, if someone were to rewrite this with consonance in mind rather than dissonance, I think we would end up with one of the best proggy tech death songs I've heard. And that's what I meant when I said that I'm enjoying this, but not for what it's doing. My ears were trying very hard to hear everything and reinterpret it in more consonant terms before it reached my head. I was trying to, unintentionally, trying to hear past the dissonance and hear the really strong chordal ideas and counterpoint and all sorts of really classically melodic ideas that are underneath this. It's like they created a beautiful, gorgeous, highly technical death metal song, and then before they got into the recording studio, they all tuned their instruments to a different tuning and didn't tell anybody else what that was. And it's mostly the guitars. The bass, I don't know if I've said this before. My ears are terrible for picking out pitch in lower ranges, which is weird because I play bass. But I tell you, back when I was in the bands, in a band, uh, we were a rock band. I was like 21, 22. Uh, I played bass for them. I went out and bought a 5 string bass. The fifth string was a lower one, not an extra one on the higher end. And in every single warm up session, whether it was before a show or it was before practice, I handed my bass off to the guitarist to tune my low B string because I cannot hear differences in tonality that minute down there. Um, it is just it's something my ears just don't hear. It's the weirdest thing. But all the notes kind of sound very samey, and I have a very tough time hearing individual notes when tones get into a certain range. And that's kind of what happened here. The bass tone was thick, and the bass, um, the string itself had a lot of give to it, and you got to hear some of that twangy warbling of the string vibrating against parts of the guitar, and like I got those textures and tones, but a lot of the notes kind of just sounded the same to me, which is probably terrible to say as a composer and a musician and somebody who talks about music every day, but I really can't hear differences in tone that low. And that was happening here. Um, I don't know if the bass had that same dissonance issue with the other instruments because it was Schrodinger's bass to me. It was always in tune and out of tune simultaneously. And some of that might just be because my ear was comparing it to a different guitar or a different note. But I'd wager some of it is also that a few of those notes were just really low. And they just kind of blend together into similar notes for me. Ah, so yeah, there's a little learn something about Bryan today. One of his quirky ear hearing things. Um, So yeah, I don't know if the bass was out of tune with the other two, but the two guitars were certainly tune or okay, they were certainly playing different things. Um, they were probably tuned together, in tune with each other, in the same tuning. Their key was the same, etc., etc. But they were purposely playing notes that created dissonance. Going back to my analogy, though, it sounds like the string instruments, the bass and the two guitars, got together and said, we're going to go in separate rooms. We're going to tune our guitars to different keys. We're not going to tell each other what those keys are, and we're going to play exactly what we wrote when we wrote in standard key earlier this week. Let's see how this goes. And that's what it sounds like to me, for better or worse. And my ear the whole time was really trying to hear a lot of the really cool stuff going on underneath dissonance, or in another way, if it was more consonant, if they were playing with the intent of being tonally in tune with each other rather than creating that chaos, that dissonance. And I don't, in that vein, I'm very impressed. There, like I said, there's some really cool things going on in here, at least what I think are very cool things going on in here compositionally that are hidden by the intentional dissonance of the track. Now, one of those ideas that was utilized quite often is counterpoint. There is a lot of musical counterpoint going on in the fact that both guitars, panned either side, are doing their own thing for a vast majority of this track. Um, they do have some interesting ideas of theme where you can hear similar rhythmic ideas start on the left side, and maybe a minute later, the left side's moved on to something else, and the right guitar picks up the same pattern. It might even be the same notes, but given that it's all really aiming for that tonal dissonance, um, I didn't really pick up individual keys or pitches or anything like that. They're operating within similar ranges as well. So there's just less landmarks for me to pick up on things like that. But rhythms were easy to distinguish since it was one of the few things that were exceptionally clear in the way in the composition. So hearing rhythms get repeated was really cool. I like how they introduced those themes, especially using it as sort of a call and response idea. Like I said, one guitar might play something, and then another guitar might pick it up, sections later. And yeah, that's really cool. It's like theme and call and response sort of integrated into one, with the call and response idea being quite delayed. I actually wouldn't be surprised if maybe on subsequent listens I heard that idea move back to the left side, and another call gets started. In fact, there may be a sort of canon idea going on with the guitars. I'm not sure. That is something I'd have to look into on subsequent listens. But I would not be surprised given the sophistication of what I did pick up on. I think that would be pretty cool though. Let's see, what else? The counterpoint. The drumming technicality is just wild. It has all of the raw precision and endurance required from black metal and tech death, sort of, really fast punk style drumming, but also incorporating some of those fancy embellishments that we see in tech death and prog metal, where it's, yes, you're getting those really fast snares and bass kicks. There's just lots of intensity, lots of notes, but it's not the same 4-bar phrase being repeated all the time. There's little embellishments and drum fills and all sorts of little areas for the drummer to showcase some personality and to inject their own playing style into the genre standard drumming patterns, um, and really play around with them and make them his own or their own. Um, so yeah, the drumming was just top tier for me, as is usual with this kind of stuff. Anything that's very tech death or prog death, there's just a lot of skill required already, which is jaw dropping and just awesome. And then you get these little bits of embellishment and ornamentation that these drummers just toss in on top of the already high skill ceiling, and it's always going to catch my attention. It is. This genre of music is just exceptional for finding really strong drummers. They're not always the most melodic, but they are technically impressive. So I'm always walking away from music like this with an appreciation for the drumming. I've already talked about the bass tone. I don't think the bass did much, but it was also a really muddy bass tone. It was definitely very thick, and it had that distinctive low string vibration sound tied to it. But I really only picked up on it when it was in isolation, and since it was center panned, the drums and the vocals tended to drown it out. It's really only when one of them backed off, or certainly when both of them backed off, that I could really hone in and hear it. What I did hear of it was fairly simple, especially compared to some of the chaotic things the guitars were working on. But I do want to bring up that tone one more time because, golly, that was a fat bass tone. That was an earth shaker right there. I think it might have been able to use a little more punch in the mix, maybe just to clean it up a little bit and give it more attack, more impact. But just the resonating tone on it, it's more than enough as far as I'm concerned with being happy with the bass. That just the resonant tone of it is just perfectly handled. Um, And then the vocals. The vocals were another interesting thing because, for the most part, they're this low, meaty growl, really powerful, really wide. But there were a couple of times when the vocalist went into a little higher range, a perceived range, and I don't know if they changed technique to more of a fry rather than whatever a growl is. Uh, but it became a lot thinner, and I love how they put that in there. They didn't seem to add extra layers to it or try to change it in production to widen it out and make it fit with the rest of the ultra heavy brutal type of singing and music that's all around it. They allowed it to get to have that thin delivery, and it really helped it stand out against the growl. And it only happened like once or twice, but it was enough of a stark difference in the music for me to remember it. And I think that's a pretty good reason to do something. Memorability, being unique. Um, so novelty, maybe even. I've spoken about that before. I love novelty in music. I know it doesn't last. It's really only good for the first couple of listens, but I'm a sucker for some novel ideas. Um, so what? Oh, the guitar, man. I got to talk about some guitar stuff because if you hone in on a single guitar and actually listen to what they're doing, one, there's some really technical things going on in here, and once again, it's just impressive probably to watch somebody do it, but it's also impressive to kind of picture what somebody's doing to do this. There's a lot of tremolo picking going on in here, which leads to just feats of endurance to do a 10-minute song like this. And then, of course, assuming the rest of the album's like this, you have an entire set, depending on if they're headlining or not. I mean, you got 30 to 60 minutes to play music like this, and I've talked about this with a lot of bands, but it's still so impressive to see musicians do this. It's not even just about writing this music and then recording it, but then remembering, oh snap, I have to get up to, and I got to get my chops up so I can do this live for a very extended period of time. And then just to see people do that. That is just watching people push the human body to perform these extreme feats of music. Uh, just fascinating. But there's also some really cool things going on there, especially with tone and overtone. And I don't know where the overtones are coming from. I don't know if it's an effects pedal they turn on or if it happens to be how they're picking, um, or it's just a combination of the speed that they're picking and the attacks getting overlapped with the distortion and stuff like that. I don't know. But there is this one part uh, the right guitar was playing some extremely fast tremolo picking, and it gave the entire tone a bit of a buzziness, and it reminded me so much of the tone, a more distorted version of it, but it brought me back to Wynton Marsalis's rendition of Flight of the Bumblebee on trumpet. And I think I even called the tone out as saying the guitar sounded bee like or bumblebee like or something like that. And that's why. For whatever reason, as soon as I heard it, snap! I was watching Wynton do some fantastic circulatory breathing and just some ridiculously fast trumpet playing for Flight of the Bumblebee. And yeah, it's just kind of wild how I'm listening to this avant-garde death metal, and a guitar tone can randomly take me to a jazz trumpet player doing a rendition on a classical violin piece. Violin, yeah, yeah. Flight of the Bumblebee's originally a violin piece, I think. So yeah, that was an interesting part of the song. But I think I've talked about this before, especially during Dissonance Week. There is a phenomenal song underneath the dissonance. And I would love for somebody to come along and take the song and retune it either digitally or put it into score so someone else could perform it or whatever, with an emphasis on consonants. And I would love to hear what that song is because, like I said, I hear a ton of really great compositional ideas in here. Um, but they really went towards dissonance as being the core function of the song. And I don't by any means want that to come off as me saying that the song is bad because of it. If someone were to change it and use consonants as a baseline for all of the note choices, it would be a completely different song. So I don't want to say that it would be better. It would be very different. It would be, I would even consider possibly changing the name. But I am interested in what that would sound like because I can appreciate a lot of the things that I can hear, but there's a lot of stuff being obfuscated by the dissonance that there's possibly much more depth to this song that I can't appreciate, at least on a first time listen, because it's hidden beneath the surface, because the dissonance is it's buried it. But I do think that these guys are exceptional musicians and composers, and I am interested in more of their stuff. I don't know if I'm ready for 57 minutes and 8 seconds of this, but I would not mind checking out another track from them. Oh, speaking about novelty, talk about getting the rug swept out from under you. That first 8 bars, I think it was, 16 bars maybe. Beautiful. See, I think this is also what got my mind into it. Beautiful chord composition between those strings at the beginning. Gorgeous transitions between chords. Gorgeous characteristics. The notes that they've chose to exemplify the certain emotions and relationships that they wanted out of those notes, and the chords themselves. Gorgeous opening. And man, was that a red herring or what do you call it? False start? I don't know. It was devious. That's what it was. Tricking me like that. You give me all this beautiful chord work and then spend 9 minutes trashing chord theory. Bravo. Bravo. But yeah, I think that opening does give me the impression that they can write more theoretically solid music. And that, of course, they write this way specifically to get the emotion and atmosphere and tension that they want out of their music. But I would love to hear an album from them that works within consonants, if that's something. I just want the prog death black metal without the avant garde. Let's make it sound out of tune concept. I think that's what I really want to emphasize here is that they're phenomenal. I'm not a fan of what they're doing tonally, but I understand why they're doing it and where they're coming from. I hope that came across in this analysis. I appreciate the art, even if I wish they would make music that worked better for my ears, because the structural ideas are all very solid. Those are my thoughts, though, on Ad Nauseam's imperative imperceptible impulse. I'm going to say that all day. I love that. That just rolls off the tongue. It's real nice. Imperative imperceptible impulse. Might be a bit of a tongue twister though. This is where you guys come in though. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this one, if there's anything that you didn't enjoy, anything that stood out to you that I didn't talk about. Go ahead and put those comments down there. Above the comment section is a description box. And there's a link for Linktree, which will take you to a menu with everything related to the channel. You can access my Twitter, support me through Patreon, join the Discord community, email me, check out the stuff I've written, submit a special selection, check out what I've been listening to. I think I hit on everything there. Also the spreadsheet. If you want to put your own requests in there or check out some stats about the channel, I keep a spreadsheet that's getting a bit cumbersome at this point, but I don't want to get rid of it because it has some really cool stuff in there. Plus, like 1,700 requests or something. Anyways, all those links are in Linktree above the description box. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of Critical Reactions. We'll be looking at another comfy music song thing for the theme, and then a special selection. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.